They could use for every single thing they did. But they would preempt your drinks order. They'd preempt your food order. Literally, as you were walking down the corridors on board, the advertising would change to reflect the product categories that you were interested in. And then they could modify the experience, everything from the pillows in the room to the channels on the TV, to match your preferences. That's CXM. Yet to be proven if it makes a return on investment, but it certainly adds to the experience.
I was just going to say, it sounds very familiar of tactics that we employ at that very upper echelon of our VIP tiers.
Yeah.
Do you think that it would ever be feasible to roll it out as a full loyalty system?
Once you've made the core investment in the technology, and once you've got your head around, you have to replace that core investment far quicker than you ever thought that you would, because tech goes obsolete so quickly. If you get on that journey, then yes, it ends up informing and running every single thing that you do. And we all know about the disruptive industries that have done this. We all know about the Ubers and the Amazons and those companies that have really run with it and made it successful because their end-to-end customer experience is fully ingrained in the product category. And Apple would be another great example of that. The amount of money you need to burn to get into that game in a meaningful level is eye-wateringly high. And if you're doing it to show 12, 24, 36-month ROI, you're not going to do it. It's a long play, and there's a lot of companies who have dabbled with it and gone, it feels too rich. What we get out at the end is not worth the cost of getting in there in the first place. So, and I use a simple example. If I had a fully integrated CXM when my customer checked into the hotel, I could have their bath run and I could have some vouchers for their favorite whatever gaming machine, etc., sat waiting for them, which is true. But I could do that through a valet and a paper voucher and achieve the same result. It's not as seamless. It's a lot cheaper. I don't need to invest $10 million to get there. Or as my old boss who runs Carnival Cruise Lines casinos said, it's lovely that when my customers turn up to the cabin, the door near field technology recognizes them and opens the cabin door. I'm not sure it was worth 10 million to take away the card swipe. And that's what it cost him. So just because we can doesn't mean that you do, unless you are an innovative company. If you're an innovative company, of course you do it. That's what you're in business for, to go further, to go beyond. So it depends where your tolerance for risk is.
Which actually I'm going to again deviate from the questions here because you've brought up another conversation that we've had in class about when we look to marketing investments, those top of the funnel strategies are often the first one that somebody goes,
always.
ROI is too far away, I don't want it. How do you manage those conversations in a company of this scale?
Quite badly. So casinos are risk averse. We're the banker, we're not the punter. So it's ingrained in our DNA as an industry that we are the risk averse ones. We always hedge, that's what we do, So to get, and also what you tend to find, and this is true of many industries, particularly ones that are not privately owned. So when you're answerable to shareholders, you have to produce dividends, you have to produce share growth, you have to produce growth projections, et cetera, and you have to produce a return on investment, because that's why people have put their money into you. They want a return from it. So when you are beholden to owners, shareholders, capital assets, whatever, that want you to get a return on their money, they are not as open to you betting their money on a long-term outcome. And so the conversation tends to go, we could do this, wouldn't it be great? Yes, that would be great. How much is it going to cost? Wow, that's a lot. How much is it going to make? And if the answer is, it's not going to make anything for this amount of time, those executives go, unless I'm fundamentally having to change the dynamic of my organization, because you may have to. If I don't pivot, I die. Unless they're in that mindset, they'll kind of go, can we do it a bit less? Or can we do just this bit and test it? Can we do a bit that has a return on investment or an IRR in 12 months or 24 months or of 25%? And it doesn't really work. You can't half leap of faith You have to totally leap of faith. The risk of doing it is you don't make any return. The risk of not doing is if you're the guy from Blockbuster Video going, people will always want to watch movies in their own home, and you didn't think that they could get them streamed directly to their device, you end up without a company because you're obsolete, because what you do is no longer bought, because new entrance to the market has superseded your category. And online gaming was felt for many years to be the big risk to land-based gaming. It isn't, because it's a different product experience. But people might just stop doing land-based gaming. So what else can you get them to do? I mean, when the Americans looked at this, when Caesars looked at this, they looked at social gaming. They looked at things like Playtika or Candy Crush. So these were games where huge swathes of people would play, a small group of people, but a small percentage of a huge group would pay to play up. I don't want to wait till tomorrow to carry on with playing Candy Crush. I'm going to pay 69 cents. I want to get those extra credits. You get nothing back except the vicarious thrill of the experience. But if enough people are prepared to pay 69 cents to keep playing Candy Crush, or to get those extra sweets or those extra little bonus things or whatever it is, that's social gaming. And if you look at Caesars, it's a great example. They developed a whole division, Caesars Interactive, which basically bought an online social gaming company, and they built a whole new business model that is complementary to their core product, but it's completely different, so they can cross-fertilize two universes. And that's a very clever thing to do, if you get it right.
If they're willing to take the risk on getting it right.
Yeah, you've got to take the risk on getting it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So we're going to go back to the CXM CRM question. So investment in CXM is a costly one that provides long-term benefits.
Yeah.
These investments are obviously... Oh no, we've pretty much just covered that question. Yeah, we'll skip that one. We'll go to the next one. So we've touched on omnichannel pursuits and online pursuits and the internal optimization plans, but what does that digital future look like for your customers at SkyCity?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because I don't know. And that's one of the problems. So there is a large swathe of my audience that are digitally savvy and digital first, and don't carry cash, don't carry wallets, don't carry key fobs, and are fully immersed in the digital world. And there's another part of my audience that have dial-up mobile phones. You know what I mean? And so again, there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. But I think it's inexorable that the move to digital first will continue apace. I don't see us going back in time. That tends to never happen with technology. You just kind of absorb and embrace and move forward. So more and more, I suspect that the customer there will be the base expectation of what a company delivers through the digital medium will be higher than it is today. And as an organization, you have to be able to reach it. So I want to check my balance online. I actually want to do more than that. I want to have an e-currency. I want to be able to pay for my hotel room out of a digital wallet, and I want to be able to put my winnings in there, and I want to be able to buy All Blacks tickets with it, and I want to be doing all of that from my phone, and I want to do it with 3 clicks, and I want it to be fun. Because that's how online purchasing is going. The biggest challenge facing our business, in my mind, new challenge, because there's many challenges, but the biggest new challenge is the erosion of cash as any kind of currency. We have to find what our digital currency alternative is, because people don't carry cash anymore. Now, at its heart, it's a token exchange. Whether it's a digital token or whatever it is, it's a token exchange. And actually, that's our core business, because if you put money in a machine, we load up a credit meter. If you go to a table, we give you little plastic discs, which are physically tokens that we call chips. So we do token exchange, but our starting point is cash. And in the future, it won't be. So we're not allowed credit, so it has to be worked through. But how does SkyCity develop an ecosystem that embraces digital wallet? That's going to be the big step forward for us.
Cool. So that's the end of the pre-prepared questions, but because we've talked a bit about stuff, I feel like I can
fire
find some
away.
of the other ones.
You can throw anything you want at me.
So when I was
on a
reading
roll.
off my false questions, and I mentioned the brand Atom, when we learnt about that in class, we learned that obviously every brand has a core nucleus to its
Yes.
For us, that would be the casino.
Yeah.
But there are all these little strategic and supporting brands that sit on the outside.
Yeah.
From my perspective, we tend to use some of those, and in particular Sky Tower, to almost offset the negative perceptions that we get from SkyCity. Is that something that you're able to talk to a little bit more?
Yeah, 100%. So it's not to offset SkyCity, because we have to make that part of our business palatable to people, not to necessarily end up as consumers, but to understand that we have a place to play in the market. So when SkyCity first came into New Zealand, there was a real push for the first few years on the pillars of normalisation and legitimisation. And normalisation was there had never been a casino in New Zealand before, and a lot of people were, we're going to go to hell in a handcart, it's going to be awful, it's going to be terrible, what does this mean for us? And so we had to normalise, this is how casinos work around the world. This is what they're about, because there were so many myths. There are no clocks in a casino. We pump oxygen to keep you awake. There are no windows. None of this is true, but these myths build up around it. So we had to normalise what we do as a business, because it was just a big red box growing in the middle of the CBD. Legitimisation is about, we are a proper company paying its way in the society in which we operate. We are not a Johnny-come-lately midnight cowboy that's going to flick with your money. We're here for the long term, and we're here to contribute. And so that is what we needed to do 25 years ago, and we still need to do today. Not because we haven't done it, because you have to keep doing it. You cannot stop doing the thing that's most important. You've got to keep doing that. I felt that the Sky Tower was an underutilised asset in terms of its brand position. So the Sky Tower was owned by New Zealand. When Sky Tower first opened, huge negative, looks like a hypodermic needle, it's all of that, people hated it. Over time, it's now consistently Auckland's iconic building, the first thing people love and they realise. And as a returning New Zealander, because I got my New Zealand citizenship and I was here for 5 years and I loved it, and I went away for work for 3 years, it turned into 8.5 years. When I flew back 8 months later, when I flew back in 5 years ago last week, and I looked out the window, when I saw that Sky Tower, it meant something to me. It meant I was sort of home. And it wasn't just because I worked here in the business, it meant something for me in Auckland. It had huge resonance. And I kind of thought, okay, that's kind of got me here. That's really powerful for a marketer when you can get there. And then as I got into the job, I kept being told the Sky Tower, it's kind of, the asset of Auckland, and, it's quite worthy and it's aspirational and this, that and the other. And it felt cold and it felt austere to me. And then when COVID hit, we did a really interesting thing. We got phoned up by the German ambassador, I think it was, who said, there's a load of Germans who've got to get out of New Zealand. There are no flights. Lufthansa are putting on a special flight. We're leaving at this time. It was 9 o'clock on a Wednesday or something. Would you like the Sky Tower in the colours of the German flag? Because it would be quite emotional. And we went, oh yeah, well actually we can do that now because we've got LED lighting. And it went off. It just touched so many people. So we kept doing it. And a lot of it's down to product innovation, because we went from gel-coated lamps to a fully LED tower. We had the ability to make the tower more just more interactive for people to see and enjoy. And during the lockdown, it became this beacon. And more people kind of wanted to talk to it and about it, to the point where you got obviously Chris Parker doing that, like, who runs the Sky Tower, because I feel they've got you. That was proof that our marketing strategy, which was just feels, was right. We tapped into something which was important to people. And so we said, well, this is our asset. It's everybody's asset, but it's our asset, and we're going to use it. And we're going to use it because it's the part of our business that belongs to people. So it's important we don't abuse that position of trust. It's important we don't cheapen it. But it's important we use it because it's a brand asset. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. So no, I don't light it gold when somebody wins a jackpot. That would be horrendous. And no, I don't let every brand under the sun spray marketing messages all over it. But you know what? If Sony PlayStation come to me for the launch of the PlayStation 5 and say, we'd love to beam something on the tower, it's kind of cool. If Shortland Street comes to me and say, it's our 30th anniversary, will you do something? Well, you're an icon and we're an icon. Yeah, I'll do something with it, you know. But if somebody comes to me and says, I've got a crispy nut crunch product launch, and can I launch it in our brand colours? No, you can't. It's too important for that. So that's kind of how it's changed. So it's there to be the focal point of our organisation, but not to offset the Sky City, but to complement it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
It's quite important to me, the tower.
I think, throughout this course, one of the components, as we've gone through the many sections of Waters marketing strategy, that stood out to me as a really interesting subject was the importance of strategic partnerships and brand alliances, which is somewhere that as far as I know, you have expertise in, and that sponsorship has fallen under your wheelhouse many, many times. How does, we touched on it now with the Sky Tower, but how does those alliances, those brand partnerships factor into our strategy? Where have we been really successful, and where maybe have we taken some learnings? Oh,
okay, so that's, if you think sponsorship is about sticking your logo on somebody's jersey or around the perimeter of their ground, and you're going to see a return on investment for it, you're going to fail. And I used to sit in meetings where people would say, how are we going to get those people down at Spark Arena back up to Sky City? And I'm like, well, you're not. Why not? Because they're down at Spark Arena watching the Breakers. Well, why are we sponsoring them? Well, if you're sponsoring the Breakers because you think the audience at Spark Arena are going to come up here, you're crazy. Because they're down at Spark Arena because they like basketball and watching the Breakers. The reason we stand behind the Breakers has to be something else. And so what is the reason that we stand behind the Breakers when we stood behind the Breakers? We're a Kiwi business in an Australian tournament. We are Auckland-based franchise. We wanted to help these guys establish themselves and get off the ground. So the start of that sponsorship made perfect sense. By the time they were bought out by a multi-millionaire American conglomerate, that rationale had done its dash. It made no more sense to do it. So and sponsorships have an expiry date like anything else. I see sponsorships, our role is to facilitate great things happening in our towns. So if we can help people make things happen and we can make our towns popular, a direct byproduct of that is we will be popular too. At a most simplistic level, if a major event comes into Auckland, our hotels fill up, our bars fill up, our gaming floors fill up, our Sky Tower gets lots of visitors. So let's be an enabler of things that make things happen, and the payback for us can be direct revenue, because these particularly big events and things, they need places to stay, they need places to go, they need places to eat, they need places to set up. But you create a crowd, we can then receive the crowd. So that's how I approach sponsorship. So you want partnerships where you help people do their thing. You don't want sponsorships where you make your partner do something that's not right. So years ago, the Warriors would have to come to Sky City after every home game to meet crowds. They wanted to drink isotonic drinks and have baths and go to bed and go and see their family, but they were being made to do this. That's not good sponsorship. That's not a partnership. So we got rid of that, and we gave care packages to the wives when they went on tour because that made them feel better. So you've got to find your reason for doing it, And the brand stuff is great. It's great to have. It's great to have the association. It's great to have the awareness. Branding 101, top of mind awareness, recall recognition, hugely important, always overlooked, but vastly important. And just listen to Mark Ritson on branding if you need further stuff on that. but there's got to be a reason for you to be there. If there's no reason for you being there, you shouldn't be there. It's kind of how I look at it. So,
cool.
So that's what we've done.
All right, we've got a couple of minutes left. I'm going to give you a question about the advertising because we've got the Lotto guy coming in.
Fire away. Yeah.
I mean, I've heard you personally talk about the differences in what we advertise and what Lotto advertises. Are you able to talk a little bit between what you see as the differences?
Yeah, I think in the minds of the consumer in New Zealand, Lotto is not seen as gambling. Lotto is seen as a nationally owned thing. It's seen as a thing that does good, and it's seen as a thing that's fun and a disposable purchase. And their messaging is all about the love. It's not really about the product. It's about the experience, the thrill, the anticipation, the what if it was you. That, which is great, because we all love to dream about what we do if we won Lotto. So there's a human truth that sits behind it, and what they've do is created scenarios that in a very endearing, very charming way bring that human truth to life. And I think the two security guards, is the absolute sort of pinnacle of them doing that. I can't do that form of advertising. I can't do it for many reasons, but I'm legally not allowed to. We are not allowed to suggest that casino gambling will improve your life, improve your health, your wealth, your status, or anything else. We're not allowed to say it'll improve your sexual appeal or sexual attractiveness, for example. And the chances, the chances are you're not going to win Lotto. The odds are astronomically against you. But it's not viewed through that lens of you're buying a ticket, you're having a flutter. It's not seen as compulsive or dangerous, potentially. Casino gambling is, so we can't do that, and nor should we. Because what we should be doing is letting people know that having a night out as a casino is fun, and it's enjoyable, and it's social, and it's relaxing. But we've got your back if you're somebody who can't enjoy that product. And it's an easy similarity to make, alcohol, but I'll actually go for another one. Gaming is fun. Platform-based gaming is fun, right? Fortnite or wherever it is. It's great fun. If you do it for 15, 16 hours solid on a diet of Red Bulls and pizza, that's not fun, that's not good. And the person who provides the experience and the platform has the responsibility and the duty of care to make sure that it stays in the fun zone, and that's what we have to do. And for us, that starts with being responsible at the outset, and that's kind of how. So our advertising, it's a little bit more functional, it's a little bit more retail, it's a lot more retailing actually. There's a gap for brand, and we need to develop that brand layer. But we need to develop the brand layer alongside the retail. It's not a binary decision. They've got to live together.
Cool. And then I'll just give you one last question about brand stuff. So obviously we've got some partners here on site with us. We've got All Blacks, we've got Weta, we've got a combination with LPL. Where do you think that next step is for us? Is there a brand in particular that you're looking forward to try and do a connection with?
It's kind of open-ended. So the LPL was, here is another territory, which again feels that it has a similarity to us. Esports gaming, esports wagering, esports experiential. It's kind of complementary to what we do, but we don't really know much about it. So we kind of dipped a toe in the market by buying a company, which is a good way of doing it. And so that's still very much in its infancy as a business. All Blacks and Weta, really, really simple. Two massively iconic Kiwi brands with huge appeal for the international market, who are honeypots to create visitation. If they're going to be anywhere in Auckland, we want them here with us, because you've got the Tower, you've got All Blacks, you've got Weta, you've now got a cluster of attractions which are highly attractive, which add to the value of the precinct. What they also add is they add appeal across the family audience, because we're very adult based. Andes is probably the only kids category we've got. Sky Tower tries, but for the average 3-year-old, it's about running around and falling over, which when you're 300 metres in the air is not what your parents like to see. All Blacks and Weta gave more of a family appeal. I'd like to see that develop. It depends who the partners are, and it depends, what options. At the moment, that's not part of the strategy for the business. It was for a while under the master plan. It will come back in time, but in the post-COVID world, it's a little bit more about rationalising back to core. I would love to see a Legoland Discovery Centre here. I'd love to see a Madame Tussauds here. If you look at how Vegas has developed, it's embraced that all aspects, really, really well. There's no reason, and to a lesser degree, so has Macau and so has sort of the Australasian casinos. I'd love to see SkyCity get to that point. But the interesting about All Blacks and Weta is it's not an owner model. It's a landlord model. It's a shared space model. There's lots more of that could happen, I think. And I think once the NZICC, gets here, I think there's then space that opens up for a lot more of that. Whether it's permanent or pop-up, I think there's an opportunity for a lot more brands to come into the space. So,
cool.
Yeah.
The last few seconds, you mentioned earlier branded house and house of brands.
Yes.
Just for context, are you able to give us an explanation as to those differences?
Yeah, so a branded house in its purest definition would be, this is SkyCity, and at every touch point for the consumer, SkyCity is the brand that is reinforced. So, and I'll take you down to brass tacks. The napkins in the restaurants would have SkyCity logo on them because it's a SkyCity restaurant. A house of brands is that Marsu looks and feels like Marsu, Depot looks and feels like Depot. Nothing is cohesive, it's all individual. A branded house of brands is, we all share a DNA, we all share a commonality, but we all have our own personality. So we're a family of brands, but you kind of know we all come from the same place because we've all got similar values in how we look and feel and operate. And identifying those values goes into your decisions to what you create and who you work with and your partnerships and everything in marketing, because it's either congruent or it's in opposition, and cohesive is always better if you're trying to do that. So we're a branded house of strong brands. Again, the Westfield analogy is a great one to use.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's all my questions. Was there anything you felt you wanted to?
Yeah. How much over the half an hour did I go?
I'm going to edit it down. It's 15 to 20 minutes, and I think every person in the class